If you've not used Zoom before, you will see a chat at the very bottom of the screen and you can put your comments there. We are recording this session, so please bear that in mind. The session will be recorded so that we can put this up onto our YouTube channel for other people to watch. But I think we're at 6:02 and we've got quite a few. How are we going, Victoria? How many have we got so far?
We're up to 39 people.
Okay, we've had quite a few registrants, so we will get started. There's a little bit of stuff that I go through to kick us off, so I'm going to share my screen. And if you've come to our webinars in the past, you will know this from the other webinars. But I would like to welcome you to our Women for STEM Jobs 2025 conversation. At the beginning of this year, I decided to put together a bit of a panel of experts in this space just to see what would happen. We know 2024 was quite rugged and rough for those of us that were in the job market. And we all want to know, is 2025 any better? Doesn't feel like it, but I'm sure our experts in the room will be able to take us through that. And before we get started, as always, I would like to do an acknowledgement of country. So we respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, the ancestors, elders, and communities of the Kulin Nation who've cared for this country for countless generations. We honour their enduring connection to land, water, skies.
Bobby, you want to set the table?
Can we just pop ourselves on mute? That would be
sorry.
Thank you, darling. So we honour their enduring connection to land, water, skies, and knowledge systems, and pay our respects to their resilience, wisdom, and culture, which continue to thrive. As we come together to learn, share, and create, we recognise that these lands have long been places of deep cultural exchange, ceremony, and storytelling. We're privileged to walk in the footsteps of the world's oldest continuous culture. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples are the original scientists, engineers, land stewards, and knowledge holders of this continent. Their sophisticated understanding of the environment, sustainability, food systems, and innovation continue to inform and enrich all sectors. Yet despite this profound legacy, First Nations voices remain underrepresented across many fields. It is essential that we listen with humility, learn with intent, and act with integrity. Ensuring Indigenous knowledge is not only acknowledged, but meaningfully integrated and respected in how we teach, work, and lead. So a little bit about Women for STEM. Those of you that have been on our webinars before will know this famous slide. So we run 5 main programs through Women for STEM, and these are designed to help support women throughout their careers in science, technology, engineering, and maths. We do this with our Attract phase, which is our Go Girl Go for IT program. We run that every 2 years because of the actual sheer size of it. This year we had over 1,700 grade 5 to year 12 students in attendance at our Go Girl event at Deakin University. Then we follow that up with grad girls. So any young girl that's gone through Go Girl or any other institution will come into the university studies. We pick them up in our Grad Girls program. Grad Girls introduces young women to industry verticals so that they have choice in their career endeavours. Then we look at our Retain phase, which is our Importance of Women and What's Hot in Tech programs. They are networking style events where we try to get as many women on stage as possible, because you can't be what you can't see. So ladies that are on this call right now, if you want to be a speaker or be on a panel of any of our events, please do reach out to us at inquiries at Women for STEM. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to give you a voice. And finally, our Mentor She program, which helps women progress in their careers, where we will match up mentors, either C-suite or board level mentors, with mentees within our program. So that is Women for STEM. I won't labour that point. Now I want to get on to our amazing panel, and I would love to introduce those panelists. So you see them on screen, but let's bring them up. And I'll stop sharing because nobody needs that much PowerPoint in their lives. So Adam Martuccio. Adam Martuccio is an advocate for technology, education, diversity, and career transformation. As a co-founder of Holberton School Australia, he trains career changers in software engineering through project-based peer-driven learning. He also launched What the Heck is Tech, an initiative to make tech careers more accessible and inspire broader participation in the industry. Adam leads women in tech programs and promotes diversity in technology, working to create opportunities for underrepresented groups. He also is involved with OnePoint, a global consultancy based in Paris, managing customer engagement in Australia and helping organisations drive value transformation, adopt AI and strengthen business stability. Please welcome Adam.
Thank you very much, Mary Beth.
And now on to our next speaker, Killian O'Sullivan. Killian is an active member of the Change Management Institute, who named him as one of their top 3 change management recruiters in Victoria in 2024. He was also launched his own Women in Technology LEAP or LEAP event series in 2024, which is focused on mentoring female technology leaders across Melbourne to support their careers into the C-suite. This program has been a resounding success to date, with over 150 senior female technology professionals engaging with the program. Mary Beth here being one of them. Having worked closely with several Indigenous corporations in Darwin for 5 years and supporting businesses who have struggled with their gender diversity balance, here in Melbourne, Killian is a strong advocate for diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Welcome, Killian.
Thanks, Mary Beth. Glad to join.
And finally, John Paul Hoey, or JP. JP joined the world of tech recruitment in 2016, combining his technical background with his passion for tech teams. Holding a Bachelor of Science in IT, his hands-on tech industry experience allowed him a detailed understanding of the specialised roles and skills needed to drive innovation and success. Moving from Liverpool, England to Melbourne a decade ago, still having a very strong accent, I must point out, JP has built a local network that focuses on C-suite directors, heads of, and general managers, allowing him to engage with influential tech leaders and decision makers. Leading an exceptional team of tech recruitment specialists at Emanate Technology, he supports his team to excel at assembling high-performing squads. Prioritising efficiency, innovation, and personalised service, JP is committed to making every recruitment experience outstanding and tailored to his clients' and candidates' goals. Welcome, JP.
Thanks for having us, Mary Beth.
Absolutely a pleasure, and I do love your accent. I love Liverpudlian accents. Got quite a few friends from Liverpool myself.
I actually don't recognise my accent on videos anymore, so I'm glad to hear you think it's still
Well,
strong.
I don't know. I have to say, you do still sound a little bit like Paul McCartney to me.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's slightly softer than the modern day.
Slightly. All right. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. As I've said before, this is being recorded. I would ask that you please keep your screens on mute for me. That would be great. We do understand you may get phone calls throughout the webinar, so if you need to take those calls, that's absolutely could be a recruiter with a role. You never know. And then also, I'd love to see your faces. So pop yourselves, put your cameras on. We'd love to see who we're speaking to. The chat is open. If there is a question that I ask the team and you want to know more, or there's a question that you have, we will be monitoring the chat throughout. And if we go off script, we go off script. This is your time as much as it is ours. So we hope you have a great time at this webinar. At the end, there is a survey that I'd love you to do for us. Helps us make these programs much stronger and better, and helps us to understand what it is that you're looking for. And as well, if you are not a member with Women4STEM, there is a member offer at the end. So do hang around. All right, so let's get cracking, gentlemen. Killian, I'm going to throw this first question at you, but your other panelists know that they are welcome to add comment. We all want to know this. I want to know this. How do you see the job market evolving, particularly in STEM, in the STEM industries, like since the beginning of 24, maybe even 2025, maybe even back into 2024? How do you see it looking now?
The hard-hitting question early, and and just before I go into, thanks again for having me involved, and hello everyone, great to connect with you all. The answer is it's not not the most simple of answer, but I'll try and break it down. I don't want to come across as a pessimist, but I'm a realist and also an optimist when it comes to the future. So I'll just go through the journey we've gone through, and not just what the stats are saying, but where the opportunities lie from that. I'll start with the not so good news. We get monthly Seek market insights. We actually just got that late last week. I've been having a look back on that ahead of this, and some interesting stats and figures. Not the nicest of reading, but some of the insights will show you that Seek data job ads have fallen 6% year on year in June. That's the 11th consecutive quarter that that the adverts have declined. Victoria has been the hardest hit with 10% decrease year on year. Regarding STEM specific industries, they've also contracted in Victoria for engineering as an example. They're down 21%, science and tech down 16%. There's been a lot of layoffs. A lot of you will have heard about some of these layoffs, but NAB, for example, have just recently left 410 tech staff go. ANZ have released 3,500 with a further 1,000 contractors. And Coles, a couple of weeks back, they laid off 30% of their tech workforce, which equated to, I think it was 500 to 600. There's further announcements have been made today, which got some inside scoop on earlier today. You'll probably see a news article on that released tomorrow. So not the prettiest of reading on that front. Applications are rising sharply, and I'm sure there's a lot of job seekers on this call that have been actively applying, and they're looking on the number in the top right corner in the LinkedIn job advert saying 97 applicants in 24 hours. It's, you know, that is the case at the moment. It's a competitive market, but what I would say is that employers are paying particular attention to getting the exact right fit, especially in niche STEM areas. I'll come back to that, but the demand for STEM talent remains underpinned by the likes of, you know, AI adoption, cybersecurity, you know, health tech. So on a more positive front, what, you know, reading between the lines with this, I would say that the slowdown we're seeing in STEM in particular, STEM hiring, is cyclical. You know, it's more so driven by economic environments rather than structural. Underlying demand for skills in areas like AI, cyber, renewable energy, it is only growing, and it's going to continue to grow. So once conditions and the market improves, STEM demand should rebound quite strongly. What I would say is, you know, professional scientific technical services remain one of you know, Victoria's long-term growth engines. So, you know, what I would say to people on this call is that the market, and what I'm saying, that presents opportunity where exact fit. Going back to that, I would lean into AI, for example, a lot more when you're applying for roles. It's, you know, not everyone is a fan of ChatGPT at times, but it can be great when it comes to aligning your application directly for the role, because there's AI software on the other end of the application and screening process now where SEO optimization and direct alignment to the role is pivotal. But further to that, I'd be looking to upskill in courses such as, you know, AI adoption, cybersecurity needs, renewable energy transition, health tech. There's some excellent free online courses at the minute. So for those that are actively looking for roles, it's a, you know, standing out from the pack is more important than ever. Upskill in preparation for what's ahead, and just, you know, go above and beyond. But the market will turn, and we're already seeing signs. I'm sure JP in particular will agree that the market's starting to shift in the second half of this year. There's definitely increased appetite. There's a lot of talk about large-scale projects coming up towards the tail end of the year and the beginning of next. So patience is a virtue in the current market. But yeah, things are starting to turn for the positive. So it's not all doom and gloom, I would say.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. So a lot in there. Yes, AI. There's a heap of stuff in AI. And one thing I want to say to everybody is this: organizations don't know what they don't know. So you learn a little something in AI, and that'll be a lot more than they actually have themselves at the moment. So there's some validity in what you're saying there, Killian. JP, sticking with sort of the recruitment side of things, any specific sectors or industries that are expected to see significant growth in the next year or two?
Yeah, I track the startup and scale up world very closely. Monitor that on a weekly basis, and whilst I don't have the accurate data for the specific sectors where a significant amount of investment seems to be leaning is typically in those AI-driven industries that are evolving at the moment. I think it's important to unpack AI as well, just ensuring that when we are understanding what falls under that umbrella, because if AI has been around for a while, but the term seems to just stop right there when people talk about AI. So from a tech perspective, artificial intelligence, machine learning are front and center for a lot of these businesses that are getting investment. What's really important is here in Australia, especially, it's applied AI, not abstract AI, abstract promises. So what I mean by that is we're seeing AI tied to solving real world problems. So a couple of examples of that might be a hospital using AI to scan diagnostics faster. Maybe agriculture technology business predicting soil moisture, crop yields, defense and space manufacturers on autonomous drone systems, that kind of stuff. That's where the demand is, and that's why I want to just talk about applied AI. From an industry perspective, a lot of the capital, I think Killian may just mention that, is being lumped into health tech, in addition to a couple of those industries I just mentioned earlier. Renewable energy, ag tech, defense and space, as well as health tech, are the ones that really stand out. The civil space sector's got a $2 billion pipeline at the moment. Agriculture technology has seen 250-ish million in 2023, I read a couple of weeks back, with R&D specifically being focused around forecasted for $3 billion in that industry alone in the financial year of 2024. So there's a lot of really interesting companies evolving. I'd say in that particular world, close to half, or maybe just more than half, is in Sydney. I'd say about 30% of that's in Melbourne, with the rest spread elsewhere. And yeah, I guess, I think it's a really exciting time for monitoring these industries and seeing what, businesses are doing with healthcare and food and defense and climate and all of these kinds of interesting problems that we're trying to solve with the current rapidly evolving technology. So I think it's a really key and valuable point that you mentioned, Mary Beth, with regards to, organizations only know what they know, and they don't know a great deal. There's a lot of businesses that are global that have tried to build out AI capability and functions here in the last 12 months, and they've sent it back overseas as well. So it's still a little bit of a uncertain world in that aspect at the moment.
And okay, so the way I'm seeing it right now, if you've been in tech long enough, you'll remember when big data first started coming out. Companies were spending millions upon millions of dollars implementing big data, but not actually knowing what they wanted to report on and not understanding how to use the data that they were seeing. Now, I think AI is in that similar space where it's actually where companies are going to spend a lot of money in that first couple of years, but I think that the adoption and the learning curve will be much faster than it was with big data. But I still see companies doing that. So, and I agree with you, JP. I'm at a lot of conferences and I speak to a lot of companies who are like, oh, we have to do AI, but they don't actually know what the problem is they're trying to solve. We've got a couple of questions and I'm going to go out of order because Anne Workmeister, she's asked a really interesting question. And I think this is fascinating. Companies and recruiters are asking for experience in AI and large language models for technology that's 2 to 3 years old, but they're asking for a lot more tenure, a lot more time with these things that are so young. So what are the real expectations when they're asking for people who've got AI or large language model experience? In both you and Killian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can jump in on that, and I guess just going back to my point earlier about upskilling and courses and AI adoption, we are hearing a bit of that. Look, I would say from the other end, speaking to the clients when we probe them on what's essential versus desirable, certainly that falls into the more desirable bracket. I think that again, when we talk about a flooded market, several candidates applying, there will be candidates out there that have gone out of their way to put themselves ahead of the pack and upskill in those areas. There's, like I was saying, there's some great courses online. Just do a bit of research and find a couple of courses that will equip you. I think a short online course should be enough to tick that box, because ultimately what they're looking for is somebody that has the awareness and fundamental understanding of how it operates, rather than extensive qualifications or degrees at this point, at least. So yeah, definitely work ahead and get ahead of the competition by upskilling yourself in that space would be my recommendation.
Okay, that's great. And I think that Erin popped in, there's some courses there. I would agree with that. Start learning, understand the language, because if you know the language, you'll actually get looked at in a much stronger light. Yeah, if you've got the language, and if you sort of sound like it's like if you walk around, believing that you know what you're talking about, people will believe you. Archana popped a question in as well, and then I am going to then go back to Adam with another question. But Archana's question, hi all, this is Archana from Help for People. With all 4 banks and telecom companies and insurance and super companies all making people redundant, with so many people released into the market, where can these people go? What are your suggestions? That's really JP. Adam, you could probably tip in a bit if you wanted to. But
yeah, I'm happy to chime in, and just to follow up on Killian's point there as well. I think it's really important to mention, LLMs have been around for a bit longer than 2 to 3 years, but companies have really only started using them practically in recent years. I think the real takeout for me for that particular question is, even if you have a year's experience and the recruiter and company are asking for 2 to 3 years, go for it. Absolutely go for it. I'm more than happy to speak with somebody that would have a year's experience in that world. I'd probably speak with candidates that are exploring it on the side as well. So I think it's really important to remember the old seek data of people only applying for jobs when they tick 9 out of 10 boxes, for example. So I would say in that situation, go for it. With regards to the question that Archana asked, yeah, I mean it's a very unpredictable world, and it's a really important question because there has been huge redundancies across those industries, and I would describe the current market as being stabilized, and we're absolutely nowhere near the heights of 2022. And I think that recruitment is a lot more targeted at the moment. My advice to people coming out to large corporates is, reposition your story. Those organizations that Archana asked about, I'm sure Killian will see this too. It's similar in the consulting world. candidates all come onto the market in a big influx. And 9 times out of 10, all of those CVs, they look very similar. They look the same. And one of the points that I made in my blog recently for job seekers was, you know, standing out and being authentic and letting tools like ChatGPT guide your story, not tell your story. So my advice would just be reposition your story and consider how you can stand out. That goes for on paper, that goes for online on LinkedIn, that also goes for, you know, when it comes to interviewing. So leverage off your network, whether that be former hiring managers, whether that be agency recruiters, whether it be communities like this, to ask advice on, you know, how your profile looks and how you can potentially reposition your story. And one thing that we're always seeing as well, which shocks me even to this day, is people that aren't necessarily talking about the value they can add or the outcomes that they delivered, often talking about, you know, responsibilities or buzzwords. So that's a couple of really easy ways that you can stand out. And another things that's coming into my mind as well is being strategically visible. So, you know, I've seen candidates that are active on the market being a bit more visible on LinkedIn, whether that be liking, commenting, and it does go a long way. You know, people like myself and Killian might see these candidates being active on LinkedIn, and whilst we might not be directly engaging or speaking with them, you know, their name and their capability and their skill set is front of mind. So I think there's many ways that you can stay visible and try and stand out from the crowd of mass redundancies in industries like that.
And I would love it if you feel comfortable, JP, because I've got your blog link. If you want to put your blog link into the chat, if anyone's interested, because I think you've got some really good pointers in there. Great questions. And I'm seeing people in the chat sharing artificial intelligence courses, any other courses, any cyber courses and things. Pop them in there if you've done it and you think it's sort of a lovely entry point. I think that's great. It's always good just to sort of get in. And you are right, JP, and I think Killian would agree, is that you need to constantly revisit your resume. Look at it, send it out. If you don't get an interview off the back of that, or even a discussion off the back of that, that's a data point. Yeah, that's a data point. Adam, now, Adam, you work in the space of job changes, which is a huge thing. How do you think automation and AI will impact hiring trends in 2025? Do you think which roles will be most affected by these technologies? Do you have a feel for that?
Yeah, so I'm less in the recruitment space and more in supporting people getting jobs. So I don't understand the market as well as obviously Killian and John, but something that JP said before that I fully agree with is storytelling. And that's what's going to separate you from the market, because it is very, very competitive. And like Mary Beth said before, I do work with career changes, people looking to transition into technology from backgrounds like nursing, accounting, teaching, whatever. And what they have that's unique to everyone else is a story. Someone that's been a nurse for 10 years has heaps of transferable skills that a computer science graduate would not. And it's about articulating those skills of emotional intelligence, patience, etc., because that's what's going to separate you from the pack. But what I'm actually seeing is, yes, it's competitive, but if you put yourself out there, there's nothing stopping you from getting jobs. All the students going through our program are getting jobs, and it is really just about selling yourself, selling a story, being active strategically. LinkedIn's an incredible tool where you can put yourself in front of anyone. You can get a coffee with anyone if you've got the right value proposition. So yes, there's these big redundancies, but if you are smart in the way that you market yourself, I don't think it's actually that hard, because a lot of people aren't doing it.
That's really interesting. I think you're absolutely right. We've got a lot of questions. I'm going to just go off script a little bit, gentlemen. So here's a question. I have 5.6 years of experience in .NET development in onshore. Now I've come to Australia to pursue cybersecurity masters, whether taking internships during first year break if possible. Which industry should we try if we've got cybersecurity or .NET. Any other expectations I need to add in resume and skill set to get work? And I think there's going to be quite a few people that have got a couple of skills there. What does the panel think? Who wants to pick that one up?
I can jump in, Mary Beth. Yeah, so I think smart move first and foremost to pursue cybersecurity. I think a standout point that I'm seeing in terms of, I made a comment earlier about hiring with intent. While jobs are lower, companies are hiring with a lot more intent, and a lot of the roles that I'm getting through to agency are blending 2, sometimes 3 business functions. So if you can diversify your skill set with something like cybersecurity, it's absolutely going to put you in good stead as a techie, but also as, you know, a person with those soft skills that, again, a lot of people really lack. You know, that curiosity, that self-motivation to do some learnings, and that particular person's background translates well into cyber. For internships, it's possible to get them during your first year of study, especially if you target organizations that partner with unis, government programs, etc. But I do know it's unbelievably competitive, and some of the points that have been raised previously around storytelling, you know, being personal, being visible, apply here as well. One thing that comes to mind is, you know, startups were not so long ago, startups were the holy grail to join, and in the last probably the last 2 to 3 years, it's been a nervous choice for many people. And, you know, one of my CTO contacts the other day said to me, "What is it with people taking boring jobs," referring to the industries that, you know, Archana asked about. And it's the signs of the market, signs of the economy. But what I'm suggesting here is there's a big gap of interest in startup companies, and it's a lot of those startup companies that are doing cool stuff with AI. It's the bigger companies with the large data that are struggling to actually get going. So I think if you are lighter on experience or fresh to the market, I would strongly recommend that you do track technology news and you look at what companies are landing funding and which companies are growing and doing cool things, and reaching out directly to those companies, and considering what project work you could storytell, considering what, you know, perhaps volunteer work you could pitch to them as part of doing an internship. Maybe you spot something as simple as a bug on their website, or something that's going to help you stand out. So I wouldn't think of it as .NET or cyber. It's more about sequencing, and, you know, that experience is going to be a good pathway into the cyber world, whether that be a blended role or a specific cyber role. But for that particular person, yeah, I would, if they were considering transitioning fully into cyber, they would for sure have to layer some certifications. And yeah, I think the current market really values adaptability as well. So the combination of a couple skill sets there is gonna put you in good stead. And hopefully, if you could get some local experience and an internship, and, you know, that master's combination will absolutely maximize your chances of being able to pivot into cyber in, you know, the next 12 to 18 months.
Well, we do have there is an event that we're running with our grad girls program on Friday. So if any of you are looking and want to reach out to me, let me know, because that could be quite advantageous if you've just finished a degree in the last sort of 12 to 18 months. Do reach out to me. You can reach out to me on the chat. Just give me your name. I'm happy to, or your email, and I'm happy to come back to you. I think you're absolutely right, JP. And Adam, I think this might be a really interesting one for you. How's the scope of DevOps in the tech world? And then there's an additional on this. Dev and testers are asked to do DevOps roles too. So single person doing the role that was previously 3 to 4 people's work, being asked to actually pick up all areas. Adam, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I'm more so in the early careers space, but I guess it does come across over the board that the foundational knowledge is so core to everything that you're doing. and understanding, I guess, what's going on underneath the hood beyond just the higher level tech is so crucial. And what we're seeing is why a lot of people are getting hired is because they can think outside the box and be creative. Whilst you might not be able to actually do everything, the willingness to want to learn is probably the thing that's going to get you that job. As far as DevOps and testing and everything, and this is really just a matter of cost cutting, effectively, that businesses are looking to improve their P&L, and if they can get more out of you for less, then unfortunately that's the way that things are right now. But this is just a matter of the organization you look for. So I saw these comments as well about, the telcos, the big fours, the big four banks, etc. These are not the only companies that hire tech in Australia. There is so many tech companies in Australia that you wouldn't even know are tech companies. And beyond that, I saw a lot of these comments about international people trying to get into the market here in Australia. And like Mary Beth and like, John Paul and Killian were saying, it is ultra competitive. But how do you stand out as an international student or international that's coming to Australia is finding people that did your journey before. You're Colombian, go find someone that is Colombian that succeeded. They will be your biggest advocate in helping you get your foot in the door. You come from Sri Lanka, same thing. Go find someone that's in the role that you want to be, that is Sri Lankan, and they will talk you through their steps of getting there, and they'll be your biggest advocate. So you've got to growth hack yourself in a way that sets you up, because it is, one, very competitive, and two, as an international, it's already going to be additionally difficult because many organizations aren't looking to hire. So yes, I guess it's stretching people thin in those large organizations, but the overarching point I kind of want to make is there is so many tech companies to look at beyond those big corporates.
Yeah, I'll just add a few points to what Adam has just covered there, because first of all, there are so many massive tech companies, and I feel like you discover a new one every week in our line of work, where you're like, geez, I didn't know how large they were. And one example, I had a guy that worked resourcing for me for a number of years, and he's now a product engineer for PaperCut, and I hadn't heard a whole lot about them previously. They're a tiny little logo in the bottom right of your screen that handle printing solutions, and they have hundreds of staff out to the east of Melbourne in engineering. They have a great, as far as I'm aware, they have a great internship program there. But what I would recommend for yourself, Srish and Jana, is all of the major universities have internship. They should at least have internship partners that you can have a look into who you should speak to within the university, and uncover, who their partners are in that space, and who maybe they could make connections for you, or even if you can get some information and reach out to them directly. But going back to some of those bigger businesses that have had the redundancy layoffs, and again, I've mentioned the word opportunity previously, all of these changes present opportunity, and particularly in your circumstances where you're looking for an internship, realistically, like Adam said, there's profit and loss considerations, and if they can get more for less, they will jump on that. So don't be afraid to put on a sales hat sometimes and think outside the box, because I would be jumping on LinkedIn. I would say, right, who has had a number of redundancies here in Melbourne over the last couple of weeks or months? Find who the key heads of or engineering managers are in those businesses, add them with a note on LinkedIn and say, hey, I know you've lost a number of your team recently. I would love to know if you have any internship opportunities. Tell them a bit about yourself in your character limit that you have with a note, and see how it goes. If you can do that with a number of individuals every day, you just don't know what could come from it. And yeah, I've heard many examples over the years of candidates who've had great success with similar strategies. It's thinking outside the box. It's you're competing with 100 others for any other roles elsewhere. Whereas if you can think outside the box, find those line managers, they mightn't have even thought about an internship until you present the idea to them. Before you know it, you could be having a conversation about something there. So try to be a bit more savvy and think outside the box when you can, but definitely reach out to your university and ask them about their internship partners as well. Just a few thoughts on that.
I guess one of the questions that I did have was about adaptability and continuous learning. And I think what we're hearing from all three of our speakers, whether that is from a recruitment perspective or from that job changer perspective, is adaptability and the continuous learning. What AI is teaching us right now is that we do have to continue learning. We are not going to know all the answers. You're not going to have all of the answers, but you need to be open to and curious about what is out there. And as both JP and Killian were saying, it's not always the organizations you think of. Now, there's something that I like to say this to individuals, and I said this at the last tech conference I was at last week. All companies are actually tech companies. They just don't know it yet. There are tech companies that do finance, tech companies that do transport, tech companies that do government contracts. Every company now, if they want to remain in the market and they want to be and have that growth strategy, etc., have to have really strong IT capabilities or technology capabilities that underpin them. So you think more broadly about where you might want to work in tech. I've worked in technology, and I see a few faces that I know here. I worked in technology for 20 years in transport and did a lot in tech, but it was a transport company because everything that you do in transport needs technology to underpin it. So start thinking outside the square about what it is you want to do, and don't be rigid about what you want. Start really thinking about, where could this particular company or this particular role take me? And remember, that your career trajectory is not on an upward trajectory. Careers are squiggly. You might go up 2 steps, back 1, across to the right, across to the left. You put your right foot in, you put your left foot out, you shake it all about. That's what your career is going to be. So although redundancies are hard, and I would have to say that a lot of people on here have been made redundant. I have been made redundant. You've got to remain adaptable, positive, and look at, what can I do to stand out? What does that look like? All right. So, I mean, there are just a ton of questions. I think a lot of them, as I've looked, are quite similar. My cat is here. So if you see me jump like this, it's because my cat's decided she wants to come and join in. So she's going to come and join us. And there she is. And you'll get to see her fluffiness as I try to read the next question to the next person. And this, what COVID taught us was that everyone has pets and kids at home. Do they not? There we go. There you go. She had her 5 minutes of fame. Okay. So the adaptability question we've talked about. I'm gonna raise this to all the panelists. I'm gonna shake things up a bit, guys, because I did have this for Adam, but I think all of you might have some thoughts, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, because obviously we're going to talk about that area that is close to my heart and close to Women4STEM's heart. How important is diversity, equity, and inclusion in hiring practices for 2025 and onward? Are companies placing more emphasis on DEI or not? And I'm going to open this up to all of my panel. Adam, it was to you first. Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, 100%. We play a lot in the diversity space, and I'm very passionate about diversity, and we do a lot of work in the women in tech space because there is a large push to support women in tech, and there's many opportunities from many organizations. But beyond diversity of gender, all of the organizations we work with are kind of engaging us for diversity of thought and diversity of background. And that is really where we see what diversity is in tech and its importance in technical teams. And that really comes back to that point. And, I'll hone on this. And I'm not sure if there's any of the students of our school in this call, but storytelling is really what's going to be able to showcase your diversity of thought, your diversity of background. And I just read before in the chat, someone was saying, how do you demonstrate storytelling? And that is up to you on the type of person you are. If you're an extrovert, I'm an extrovert, put me on a camera. I will tell my story on the camera and I will send that story to someone until they read it. I've had a situation where I've been emailing people, so many times in a row, and when you're chasing in this corporate world, it's very different to, I don't know, if you were chasing a girlfriend. When they're not responding, it's not because they don't like you, it's because they're busy. And people do respect persistence and following up. So when you are selling your story, being persistent and following up is super important. But yeah, coming back to the diversity piece, that is really what we're seeing the industry is looking for. More diverse thought, more diverse background, and being able to harness all of your experiences that you've got in your past, whether that's working at Woolworths or whether that's being a nurse for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I'll add to Adam's point just around, you mentioned, is there going to be more emphasis on it? The straight answer to is there has to be now, because and I'll post, I just grabbed a link while Adam was talking, I'll post it in here. It's an interesting read, is the WGEA, so the Workplace Gender Equality Agency, which has been just established last year. And to be frank, it's putting a lot of pressure and accountability on these businesses, where they have to provide full transparency on their gender pay gap reporting, and there was a report in March that showed was it like only 21% of employers fall within the plus or minus 5% gap. So there's a lot of pay audits that are showing a lot of businesses in not so good light. So there's a huge pressure now to act on that. There's far too long businesses, and JP will certainly agree with me on this. We speak to businesses all the time that talk about their DE&I efforts, but when it actually comes down to it, there's not enough accountability until now. So it's great that this has been introduced and that businesses have to answer for those pay gaps, and hopefully it will continue to improve.
Yeah, I'll jump in, Mary Beth. I think it's something. It's a subject that leaves people very uncertain. Not to go into too much detail, but we obviously saw what was happening in the US in the last year or so with regards to DE&I and pulling back, and some of the political and legal pressure. So I think the media narratives can often form, well, not often, but almost always. You consume that information. You typically form opinions, whether you like it or not, whether you agree or not. But Australia is very different. I think there was an article very recently, maybe a few days ago, in either the AFR or the Australian, that was talking about how some of the large corporates have softened their language with regards to DE&I in the annual reports, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's disappearing. It's just more about, my gut feel is it's less about slogans and more about leadership and accountability. What Killian just said there. So I think there's an evolution in 2025 with DE&I, but it's important to try and get different opinions outside of mainstream media for sure to form an accurate opinion. From a on-ground operational point of view, I'm speaking with clients all the time about DEI initiatives and hires. So it's absolutely still at the forefront, although it might have appeared to have been sort of disappearing slightly in recent times.
I've seen less of a checkbox since the WGEA reports started coming out, whereas I would have to say maybe 5 years ago, I was the diversity tick in a tick box, and you could almost tell because there was a great deal of disinterest in that first screening interview. It was just basically, well, yeah, you're female, so we're going to put you forward, and then you wouldn't ever progress anywhere because they already had a candidate or something they had in mind, but they needed that diversity tick, and I've seen that shifting and changing. And I think that's very important because I think it's that accountability piece that all three of you were talking about. And I think that's very true, I think. And the softening of the language, what I'm actually starting to see, I'm seeing a lot of job adverts now that are saying things like, doesn't matter if you don't have all of the skill, if you don't have everything that we've listed, you will have transferable skills. And they're really inviting different individuals to apply for roles. And I think that's a great thing, because we do have transferables. And there was a question that Chi put up here, which was with the storytelling for job seeking, would you do it in the resume, or is it in the cover letter, or notes, get cited, read? When do you use these stories? When is the most appropriate time? JP, you're with me?
Yep, I'll jump in. Yeah, I think I mentioned it at the start. Storytelling, people typically think interview. It's not the case. It's it starts with the CV. It starts with LinkedIn presence. Storytelling is in every aspect of the process, and I think it's also important to mention that ultimately everybody's in sales. You have to sell yourself. If you've got the skills and the capability and the outcomes, but you can't sell them, you're not going to get very far. And this doesn't mean become a 1990s salesperson on the Wall Street floor. It means just actually taking a step back. And I myself, I really over prepare for interviews, and I really over prepare my candidates as well. If I don't over prepare, I won't interview effectively. I'd point you towards, there's a TED talk. I can't remember the lady's name. It's called The Art of Persuasive Storytelling. I'll grab the Google link in a moment. If anybody is genuinely interested in that, they should have a look at that video and dedicate some time to researching things on Google. I actually think places like Reddit are very reassuring for situations like this, where you will be reading about other people's growth hacks with storytelling. So maybe consider joining a storytelling thread and just consume that information. And really important that you actually try and put it into practice as well, not just doing it all in your head. If that's recording a video of yourself storytelling. Before my best man speech, which I was very nervous about because I think there was 200 people, I recorded myself on a voice note, and I thought it was great when I was hearing myself. But when I actually listened to the phone, I was talking really fast. It wasn't very articulated very well. So make sure it's not all happening here. You're thinking about things, but you're actually putting it into practice with, a friend, a partner, a colleague, a recruiter.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree. Practice.
I might just jump back in on that. Sorry, maybe while it's fresh in my mind, just I couldn't agree more with what JP is saying about being a salesperson. Everyone's a salesperson when you're on the market, and even when you're in a job. But what I would say when it comes to selling yourself and telling your story, I would be thinking outside conventional approaches like cover letters, for example. Hands up, I'll admit I don't pay a huge amount of attention to cover letters myself, because when you're a hiring manager with so many applicants in front of you, for me, those that go above and beyond just applying, or even applying with a cover letter, they're the ones that I'll pay attention to, because I know that they're genuine, that they are not just batch applying online. They've gone to the effort of sending me an email. Put your covering letter in a short paragraph or two email with your resume attached, and just say, following my direct application, I wanted to email you directly. Again, add them with a note on LinkedIn. If you can find the hiring manager, just say, following my application, I'd love to connect here. It would be great to chat further. Those kind of things, just thinking outside your conventional methods, but putting yourself ahead of the pack. Storytell through your LinkedIn ad with a note, your email, that kind of thing. So just said I'd add that to the points.
Yeah, I think all of these things are important, but just remember, you've got organizations that have let thousands of people go, so it just makes it a little bit harder. So networking events are also a really good place to start your storytelling, and the best way to start a conversation is, what's a main problem you're trying to fix. And then if there's something pertinent in your background, you can have a conversation with somebody just to show them the value you add. We talked about that originally. JP, Killian, and Adam also said that your resume needs to talk about the value you bring, the outcomes that you have delivered, yeah, as succinctly as you can possibly make it. Now, there was a quick question a bit further up. We're getting so many questions, which was, where was it now? Is volunteering still a thing? Does volunteer work still count for anything? All of you, what are your thoughts?
I'd say I don't see a great deal, to be perfectly honest, but of course it counts. Yeah, absolutely it counts. I can't say I've seen it a great deal. However, I also don't think there's many people or active candidates out there, proactively seeking out those opportunities. So, we're talking about the storytelling. We're talking about keeping an eye on these companies that are trending in the right direction. If you've got a story that you can portray that's going to be well aligned with that company's mission, or maybe something as basic as a very specific technical skill, then I would consider potentially reaching out to a business owner, especially in the startup or scale up world, and perhaps offering a short period of volunteering. But I think you could command a bit more respect if you apply that to if I deliver A, B, and C, is what I would like out of it at the end. And that might be a formal interview. That might be a paid internship, for example. But yeah, it's not something that I see or you see generally anymore. Love to hear the opinions of others.
Yeah, I'd probably say that where I've seen it work quite well, and MB, you're a good example. I know you've had some great volunteers there at Women4STEM. I see volunteers through my involvement with the Change Management Institute. There's volunteers involved with the coordination of those events. The same with the PMI, Project Management Institute, Women4STEM, Beer Ops, these kind of networking groups that are specifically tailored to specialist areas within technology. There's so many great industry networking groups. I would say if you're going to look to volunteer, that's where I'd be looking, because you're ultimately you're heavily involved in the event series and connecting with leaders and hiring managers at every event. You're front and center, and great opportunity to present yourself to these people. So yeah, if you're going to invest time in volunteering, definitely look at some of those types of groups.
I'm going to double down on what Killian's saying as far as the time well spent on that networking component. And back to what JP is saying on the voluntary work, I tend to try and steer people away from the idea of doing things for free. Because from the experiences I've spoken to many people, it's very easy to be taken advantage of. And you don't know you're taking advantage of until it's happened. But in saying that, work is work. You're building something for yourself. That is work. That is experience. Put that on your LinkedIn. Create a fake logo. Create a fake thing. Put on your LinkedIn, because what you've been building for the last 6 months by yourself is tangible experience. This is a part of your storytelling. Just because you didn't get paid or you didn't have an employer doesn't mean that this is not experience, because you've actually been working on something tangible and you've been building a product. So this is really all about the storytelling, and people have this imposter syndrome that, oh, this work that I'm doing is not good enough. Let them be the judge of that. Don't make that assumption yourself. So any small project that you're building yourself is work, and that is a sense of experience in the same side as AI is the other thing there. Just because you haven't worked in AI doesn't mean you don't have AI experience. Any type of engagement that you're using with AI on day to day is AI experience. Find a way to position that into your storytelling as well, and find a way to showcase these skills, because everyone has experience in AI in some capacity. So this experience can be also put on your CV because it's true.
I have to say, with volunteering, I do, as a hiring manager, and I've been a hiring manager for many years in my, maybe not so much in the role I'm in now. However, when I see somebody giving freely of their time, now I'm not talking about sort of donating time to, building something, or, that's the thing. I mean, working in a soup kitchen as an example, or, doing something else, being part of something bigger than yourself. I look at that quite favorably. But that's because I do that myself, because I also believe in giving a little bit back. So all of our speakers here today also are donating their time. So this is a volunteer sort of thing. I think there is something in it. It just depends on how much time you've got that you want to apply to that. And do you want to do something that is directly related to work? Now, I have to say, if you lead a team of volunteers, it will make you a much better leader. If you're a leader right now and you think you're a good leader, lead a team of volunteers. Then you'll know whether you're a good leader or not, and it will help change your leadership style for the better. Because when you work with volunteers, it is all discretionary effort. You know how you want to get people to do a whole lot of work for you, and you think, oh, I need a little bit of extra effort from my team. When you work with volunteers, it's all discretionary effort. So being able to rally those individuals and get them to give more of their time is quite a skill. And so in that space, I think completely transferable from a leadership perspective. But if you are in a more junior role, it might not be as fruitful for you. I'm just having a quick look. We've got so many questions, but I would like to ask this of the entire panel. Again, this is another one that I'm changing around a little bit, guys, so I do apologize, but I think this is one that I think this is really interesting, and I want to flip it. We're flipping the question now. So how have candidate expectations changed over the last couple of years? Are there any specific benefits or perks that are becoming more important to job seekers? And this is for all three of you. Adam, do you want to kick us off? I know you do slightly different in your space, but I think you've got some pertinent stuff you could add to this.
Yeah, so less on the hiring side and more on the candidate side is where I play, just because I'm in the education space. But I think whilst it's highly competitive, don't just go for anything. Be specific and be focused on the type of company that you want to work for. Sometimes when you throw a sheet over everything, doesn't work, because you're kind of just applying. You're better off focusing your attention on a batch of organizations that fully align with your values, rather than going, all right, I'm just going to apply for every job opportunity that comes. So as far as the candidate experience, I can't talk too much to that because I'm less so on the hiring side. But for people that are looking for jobs, I would say, in my opinion, you're better off being focused and finding organizations that align with your values rather than actually just applying for anything.
I like that. Killian.
Yeah, I would say things are probably reversing a bit. We've probably seen expectations come full circle. What I mean by that is, if you were looking, we'll say around 2018, 2019, there was a huge, very heavy emphasis on what are they paying me, what's the base. The stronger the market became, and more buoyant the opportunities were, candidates were increasing their emphasis on workplace flexibility, well-being benefits, additional leave, lifestyle perks, training and development opportunities, those kind of things. But I would say in recent times, we're seeing a return to very strong emphasis on salary. And look, the reasons are obvious. The economy's difficult right now. Inflation, increased cost of living, rent and mortgage increases. Candidates really are looking for base salary, and they're much more willing. I'm having conversations the last couple of months where candidates are saying, if I have to come in 5 days a week for a 10% increase in salary, I'm willing to do that. You wouldn't have that conversation 2-3 years ago, because flexibility was much higher consideration at the time. What else can I say on that? I would say contracting, you've had professional contractors that have been probably badly burnt and left out of work for long periods of time, when, again, going back to 2022, you couldn't convince them to look at a permanent role for love nor money, whereas now you've a huge increase in candidates that look to move away from contracting and looking for more ongoing permanent stability, just given the way where the market's at. Permanent roles are they're back, they're in high demand compared to contracting, so there's a bit of a more balanced emphasis when it comes to contracting versus permanent as well.
JP?
Can you repeat the question, please, Mary Beth?
Oh, so my question really was, have candidate expectations changed over the past few years? Are there any specific benefits or perks that are becoming more important to job seekers?
Okay. Well, for sure they've shifted. They've shifted more in the last 3 years than probably, the last 10 years. So I would say. I think flexibility is still number one. I think it's less about remote versus office, and a bit more about time, trust, flexible hours, well-being support on the days that you might need an extra hour to get into the office, or a half day to go and rid the brain fog or whatever it may be. So I think that aspect has definitely shifted. And when I do have a client that offers hybrid working or remote, it's awesome, because it's a great role to take to market, given the backward shift that we've seen towards going back to the office and whatnot. But I think last year the return to office was quite negative from a candidate perspective. I wouldn't say it's positive, but it's definitely more positive, because I think there's a lot more candidates that are actually craving a return to the office. That means a hybrid model, though, not 5 days in the office for sure. I think cost of living pressures are always front of mind, and that means that some perks that companies offer carry real weight, whether that be training budgets, bonuses, STI, LTI, maybe even practical things like wellness, gym memberships, help with transport. And I think in particular the Gen Z layer of the market, that they will walk away from a higher salary if it doesn't contain some of these perks, or the culture doesn't stack up. So yeah, I think there's definitely been a shift, and some employers are steaming ahead and competing well. Others being a lot more aggressive with their messaging, and it's a very, very, very tricky question to answer, and I'll give you a different answer depending on what day it is.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And what I find really interesting is that pre-COVID, I always worked a 4-1 split, let's call it. That's the language we use. I always worked from home on a Wednesday, because it gave me a chance to catch up from the previous Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and then to prep for the next Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. It was the only day, because as a senior leader, you're just constantly bombarded with people, and to just get some work done. And I always did that. And it was never a problem. But now it seems that there are some organizations that are really sort of staunch, you must be in 5 days. But you raised a really interesting point there, JP, which is, again, off script and no question there, but you raised it and I just thought, oh, now that's a meaty one. So as a senior leader, I know what it is like to lead boomers all the way through to what's the latest now that's coming at us, all these different generational needs and wants of the individuals that work in an organization. Do you ever get employers saying, I don't want any millennials, give me Gen X's, just get me Gen X's. Do you ever get any of that sort of thing, like from a recruitment perspective? I'm just really curious because I honestly find it really hard with Gen Z to sort of work out what is it they actually want now.
Clients absolutely say it, but it's not usually about millennials, Mary Beth. It's usually about the generation below. But that's something that if a client does say that, politely sort of remind them not to generalize. And I think it's really about just unpacking their mindset as well. They may have just been burnt by one person, and whilst that person will have been a Gen Z, it doesn't mean Gen Z is the issue. They might have been burnt by a millennial or a boomer as well, but it does come up, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that's one of the challenging parts of our job, because the hiring managers and our clients hold the keys to the safe, right? So we're working for them, but so we do, the ones that hold the value integrity. You have to really sort of unpack it and ask some open-ended questions to really understand what your client's perspective really is when they make comments like that.
Must be really hard being a recruiter, I have to say. I just think it would be very, very challenging. All right, let's get back onto the other questions. So, a salary expectations shifting in 2025. What are they looking like? And Adam, from your perspective, you'll be able to answer this one too. I'm sure you will have some feedback. Killian, can I start with you? How are salary expectations shifting in 2025? Or are we just all just desperate for a job and we'll take anything?
Yeah, I would probably summarize it in that late 2024, early 2025. The outlook was I now need 20 to 30K more than I've previously been asking for, because my rent has increased or my mortgage rates are gone up. And there was a disconnect. There was candidates that were looking for more than the market was. So the market was starting to offer less, and candidates were expecting more. So there was the gap certainly widened. Bit of realism has come into play in recent times. So I'm having conversations with those same people that are calling back and saying, I'm now looking for 20, 30, 40K less. I think the outlook right now is take what you can for the time being until the market improves, maybe early next year. So market expectations have definitely fluctuated quite significantly over the last 12 months, I would say. Right now, salaries are marginally up year on year. So again, just come back to the latest Seek Insights report. I think they're up. It was something like 3% nationally, 2.5 to 2.8% in Victoria, which it is up, but I mean, inflation rate and cost of living is up a lot higher than that. So it is tough out there, but yeah, I think expectations they've returned to more realistic levels, I would say, in recent months.
Instead of what happened at COVID, I think we're seeing a right sizing and things smoothing since COVID, when then salaries were just insane.
Yeah, but the other point, sorry, just to add to that, MB, is going back to my point about people coming out of contracting roles because the contracting opportunities were becoming less and less. They were looking to move into permanent roles, and they were making $1,000 a day, and they were calculating the equivalent on a permanent basis, and that's just not realistic. You've got to at least divide that by 1.25, take that 25% loading away, and then you're closer to a realistic number. I think candidates are starting to, those that have been contracting that are now looking for permanent, are starting to come to terms with the drop off of loading, and they're becoming more realistic in what they're after.
Okay, JP, you have anything to add?
The question was, how has salary expectations shifted?
Yeah, our salary expectations shifting.
Yeah, again, it depends what day you ask me and whatnot. And I think in my world, at the top end of the market, there's fierce competition for AI, ML, cyber talent, and I'm seeing those top candidates, competing with a couple of offers at a time. Outside of that, though, I'd say salaries have stabilized and have been back to pre-COVID levels for a little over a year. I think one of the things that is really important to consider and quite challenging to navigate is it's a really strong candidate market for clients. There's a lot of people competing for small jobs, and that means you get candidates, financially undercutting the market. A year ago they might have been on $1,000 a day, like Killian said, but now they're open for doing 800. Back in the 2022 boom, there was the 800 was almost applicable with a higher mid-level engineer, and it's almost a medium point for a senior engineer now. So there's so many subjective things at play. And I think, as I said in the previous question, there's a lot more things that certain candidate pools will consider outside of the monetary aspects of the salary as well.
We've got some questions that I'm reading one question and it's making me smile. It says, in such a competitive job market, as a recruiter, would you reward someone being bold, or would it be seen as a red flag? For example, if a grad reaches out to a CEO asking for a role. Who wants to field that one?
I just want to add something on that. Looking at that, I'm not in the recruitment game, but I'm very much in the growth hacking game. And the last 4 words I think are the actual issue there is the asking for a role. I don't think it's an issue for a grad to reach out to a CEO, but I would not suggest that grad reach out to the CEO and say, "Can I have a job?" Because I can guarantee you that's not going to work. If you're a grad and you find a CEO that has a similar background to you, let's just say you're German and the CEO of this company is German for some reason, you guys have some link there, tell this CEO your story. Ask the CEO to catch up for a coffee, because this will result in the job. I can guarantee you, asking this CEO, "Hey, do you have a job?" They're not even going to look at that twice. So I don't think it's bold to do that, but I would steer clear of the job asking on that side.
I love that. Find that connection. What these panelists are telling you, find a personal connection with somebody, as Adam has said it multiple times, because that is the way we connect with each other. Then tell your story, or better yet, ask the CEO to tell their story, because they're all going to want to talk and they'll love that. And then you can pick out something from that you might be able to craft into a really fantastic, wow, I've had this experience before and this is what I did to solve, or something. Sorry, JP, you were going to say.
Oh, yeah, just some really good points from Adam. And yeah, it really depends on the how, not the what. How you go about it. If you go about it asking for a role, I'll be very blunt here, it's going to come across as entitled and tone deaf. So that can be a red flag. However, if you have been monitoring the business, maybe you've been doing a bit of research, maybe you've kept your eye on them over a 4-8 week period and not just done a knee-jerk, DM. The key is how you frame it, being respectful, being curious. The main thing, which I appreciate can be very difficult for people that are early in their career, is being specific about the value that you can add. So yeah, don't demand the job, but really consider how you frame those things. And it's also important to remember that, these threads and messages that you're putting out, again, visibility. They might not respond, but they're seeing your name. They might be connected with you on LinkedIn, so they might see your other activity across the platform. So if you sent a message 8 weeks ago, and then you have a bit of a light bulb moment where you see an opportunity to add value regarding your skill set, or even just your personality or interest, then your name's already familiar. So even if your message is ignored, it's never wasted. And this could be a connection that you could leverage off in 2 years' time, 3 years' time as well. So absolutely be bold, but just be very considerate that it comes with, again, over preparation and humility.
Yeah, I would just add to JP's point and say, I wouldn't say it's bold, but probably not the most strategic to reach out to the CEO. I would be thinking 1 or maybe even 2 levels down. Look at the CEO will not be the decision maker when it comes to these things. They will have direct reports. I mean, within technology, you'll have a CIO, and even still, perhaps it should be the line managers that report directly into the CIO that you should be connecting in with and adding with a note on LinkedIn or emailing or whatever avenue you choose. And in doing so, and on JP's point, there'll be others that'll do that as well, but you want to stand out again from those that are directly contacting them. Do some research on the business, have a quick Google before you reach out to them and see what's in the news. Go on to their ASX listing and see if their stocks have increased or if there's been anything worth noting. And then when you add them with a note, you can make reference to something that you're aware of with the business. And just, ask them to, if there's an opportunity to work with them or discuss further. And then on Anne's point, I see Anne Berkmeister had asked if people are okay to take a coffee like that. Ultimately, if your reach out is well orchestrated, if you can demonstrate the value that you can add to them, of course they want to have a coffee with you. They want to hear about what you can do to support them. Going back to the previous conversation about the internship, if you have an excellent skill set and you can support them on a very cost-effective basis, they're going to want to hear about how you do that. But yeah, absolutely. If there's value in what you can provide to them, then they're always happy to grab a coffee, I would say.
Fantastic. That was great. Really good responses there. Anne also popped in and somebody else sort of asked a question. Is it better to apply on Seek, LinkedIn, or directly on the company's website? And then is it true that Indeed is free, so there are more jobs posted there? I'm not sure about that, but gentlemen, you may know. Killian, JP?
Often the applicants, JP, you might have a different view on this, but my from the other side of the fence with organizations, my understanding is that, again, depending on their portal, but the portal would push all of the applicants through into one landing page. What I would say is that LinkedIn, it can be a little less effective to Seek, because Seek, the applicants that come through Seek are a lot more Australia based, whereas you'll have applicants from all over Australia, Asia, and beyond applying through LinkedIn. So sometimes hiring managers might lean more of their emphasis towards the Seek applicants. But again, going directly onto the website, sometimes you will find as well, if you go onto the website, they might note the hiring manager there versus Seek. You might even have access to a position description that won't be provided on Seek. And then if you go back to LinkedIn, sometimes the hiring manager is attached to the role, and you can directly reach out to them and add them. That's a good way of, if you see the role on Seek, cross-check LinkedIn, see if the hiring manager has been listed. If so, definitely drop them a note or add them with a note. So yeah, it depends, but yeah, to summarize, I think they all end up in the same pot, but Seek and direct on their website would be my recommendation over LinkedIn. But what are your thoughts? Any thoughts on that, JP?
I think it's a really good point that you mentioned that they end up in the same pot. They do. I'm speculating again. I like to speculate guided by data, but I don't have the data for this one. I'm pretty sure there is a little bit of truth in what that person's asked, but it's really important to remember or learn that Indeed's like a scraper job portal. So it scrapes jobs from career pages, from Seek, from internal portals. So sometimes they can show up there first, but you'd also get a lot of really old ones on there that are long expired. And yes, it's free to list, whereas Seek, they've been putting their prices up since as long as I've been in recruitment, and same for LinkedIn. So yeah, with Seek, I'd say Seek and LinkedIn, companies are a lot more deliberate with what they put up. But on the point that I mentioned about Indeed, yes, I often will see duplicates, expired roles that I'm pretty sure aren't being actively recruited for. However, while these roles are falling into those categories, this is really important data. That is a company that if you see interest in or some alignment with skills, you can still go and reach out to that company like we've been talking about in the recent questions. Just because there isn't a live job, don't let that stop you from engaging with the company. And yeah, so I think my ultimate advice would be to use all of them. Seek's generally the go-to in Australia. I feel like Indeed is not generally the go-to, a bit more in the UK, a bit more in, I know to read and Indeed in the UK, isn't it? So I think Seek is the go-to generally speaking, and Seek, I believe, is quite a bit cheaper to advertise on. So you will get, I believe, there's less algorithms at play with the Seek results. So you can find a lot more smaller companies that are typically easier to get into and getting less candidate volume. I'm sure active job seekers will see the LinkedIn algorithm sort of seems to spit the same logos and the same jobs at you. So I would use both, but Seek is going to have a lot more of those lesser known companies that, generally speaking, might be a easier way in.
Well, I am looking at the time, and my goodness, how that is 7:28, and we are like way at the end, and I think we've answered a lot of questions for everybody. I normally do close this off with a quick takeaway from each of my speakers. Do you think you could do something really sharp in 30 seconds, each of you, a quick takeaway? JP, you're on my screen. You want to do something really quick, a quick takeaway for everyone?
Sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, I think we'll just leverage off the 3 takeaways. So being strategic and visible, number 1. Number 2, talking about outcomes, not responsibilities. I can't emphasize how probably 7 out of 10 CVs, maybe 8 that we see, are just listing responsibilities and buzzwords. Very rarely talking about outcomes that is backed up by tangible data. If you have that, you are standing out massively. I can't emphasize that enough. And another point I raised in my blog as well is be yourself. We're in a world where all CVs are incredibly polished, and I have hiring managers that tell me they will almost interview a imperfect CV over a perfect CV these days. Some of those hiring managers are tongue-in-cheek. Some of them are deadly serious because they're sick of seeing perfected GPT CVs. So let Gen AI, Chat GPT sharpen your voice, not replace it. Make sure that you are retaining some authenticity and making, being personable when you get past the digital stage into face-to-face scenarios.
Thanks.
Sorry, that was a lot long.
It was a lot longer. Killian.
Yeah, I would say, again, just going back to enhancing your brand, put on the sales hat, stand out from the pack through some of the pointers I made before. Visibility is obviously very important. So I've just posted a link in there to an event that I have on the 23rd of September with someone you know very well, MB. That's Amanda Blessing. And Amanda and I will be talking on a webinar on September 23rd about visibility to power, and she has a book coming out on that shortly afterwards, and she's fantastic. I don't need to tell you that, MB, but jump on, sign up. Spaces are limited, but if you're keen to join, she'll have plenty more to talk about on everything we've covered tonight.
Thank you, Killian. And Adam.
Thank you, and I'll keep it concise, but storytelling is so important. Differentiate yourself. That's what's going to get yourself out there. It's difficult, not impossible. And the one thing I would say is find someone similar to you because they will want to help you.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen. That is brilliant. Now, as I said before, now if anyone wants to link with you on LinkedIn, did you want to pop your LinkedIn details in the message in the chat? You can link with these guys. I do have a lot of recruiters that I am very close to. Just always, it's good to know what's going on in the market. Now, as I did say before, I'm going to share my screen one last time, which is our survey. Please have a look at that if you wouldn't mind. I'd love to hear what you think. I'm sorry we couldn't get to everybody's questions. There was a lot of chatter going on, and that was fantastic. Thank you so much. If you wouldn't mind finishing our survey, I will move that along now. Hopefully you've all gotten a copy of that. And then if you are not a member with Women for STEM, we have our membership offer for $79. You can be a member with us for the year. We do a lot of free events. We also have a lot of events coming up. 2026 is going to be a massive year for Women for STEM, another big year. Can't wait to bring that to you all. I will stop sharing the screen. Once again, would you mind a big round of applause with all of you on mute, which is fine, but for JP, Killian, and Adam, what an amazing webinar. Thank you, gentlemen. This will be replayed on our YouTube channel. Thank you everyone for joining. I will sign us off. Our recording is stopping now.